because our team, Jamie, if you can go to the next slide, um, our team, we have three CBE gurus, Erin, Jamie, Sarah, and then myself. They let me play with them. Sarah's under the weather. She's our usual like high energy intro person, but she has given me the responsibility today, so that's why I'm kicking this off. Um, as I said before, we will be talking about CBE strategies for the generative AI era. So, uh, housekeeping as usual. We want you to make sure you protect your information and don't use any PII or personally identifiable information when interacting with any AI tools. We also want you to protect your students, and so if you're using AI tools to provide student-specific feedback, you want to make sure to remove any PII prior to any copy and paste, and also share this with your students. So if the students are interacting with AI upon your recommendations or guidelines, they also want to keep the personal information away from the AI tools. Um, we generally recommend not using third-party AI tools to record things and or bringing them to meetings because we don't really know how the personal information is going to be used, and so privacy contracts are not in place. And sometimes, so if there's a read AI or something, you might see it kicked out from our sessions. But not to worry, we are recording everything in Teams, and on our website, Bridging Minds and Machines, you will have a full recording, a summary of the main points, and everything in just a couple of days. So all of this session is recorded anyway. So don't worry if we kick your personal recording device out. Um, just a little bit of a personally identifiable information refresh, PII refresh. Basically, which any information that is not lawfully made publicly available and can be used to distinguish or trace individuals' identity, like socials and stuff like that, that's PII. And the best practice recommendation is to use minimum necessary. Basically, what that is, it's the standard that defines the least information and the least amount of people that are required in order to accomplish a task. And so, when in doubt, just always think about, is this necessary? What's the minimum amount of information I can give somebody or include in the session, or whatever talking you're doing. Little bit of a policy reminder, TBR policy reminder. TBR does handle non-SSN identifiers like driver's licenses, and it may handle that, but we always follow minimum necessary standards, and that's across the system, students in our D2L system, etc. We always safeguard and treat it like social security numbers, so, not disclosing is the best policy, and access it only when needed and transmit it very securely. If you want, I'm sure we will share the slide deck with you. We have a link to the TBR PII policy if you want to kind of look at that. And then there's also a knowledge article on how to protect PII when transmitted. You can check that out if you need to. So this is just, background information. Now, today's session, we are going to be talking about various competency-based education strategies for generative AI. And within that, there will be sharing of CBE practices that can strengthen academic integrity with examples. There'll be mapping of AI literacy competencies to your own outcomes and a couple of ways to do that. We'll draft an applied assessment that uses generative AI, and then also talk about aligning curriculum with workforce demands. And this is super important. This also kind of ties back to the chancellor's or the strategic plan for TBR, the Looking Forward 2035 strategic plan for TBR, where workforce demands are kind of front and center in how we educate our students so they come out of our schools being workforce ready. As always, we'll do a sneak peek on looking ahead, just kind of telling you what's going on in the AI Learning Collaborative, what we are working on, and then share our resources with you, kind of share the links and everything like that with you. So I will kick it off to Erin now.
All right, so let's start with a poll. So if you can get out your smart device, or you can type in the URL that's provided there and answer this quick question. What is your greatest GenAI pain point? And I've going to do that here with mine. And this is using Slido. You might have used this poll in your courses or in other trainings, which will allow you to see the word cloud built on either your computer if you're using the URL, or on your phone if you're using the QR code. So go ahead and answer the question there. And so let's see, what is this audience's greatest pain point with generative AI? I'm going to put in a response so I can see the cloud here too. So you should be able to see the cloud then forming on your device. And so right now we have keeping up. That's interesting. Privacy, lack of faculty AI literacy. Stay tuned for later in the session. Integrity, yes, integrity is key. Accuracy, yes. Another one here is so many of them. There's just so many of them. Yes, and Tech Talk Tuesdays, we try to narrow that down for you, and we have great resource on Bridging Minds and Machines for you to check out for that. Let's see, a couple more. Training. Yes. Knowledge goes together, training and knowledge. And now we're starting to see some that are bubbling up. Lack of faculty AI literacy. So want to see if we can have a couple more contributions here from a student lens. I see a lot of these are from a faculty lens. So what do you think maybe are some pain points within your faculty roles, or if you're working with students in an advisement role? So what are some of those pain points? Let's see if we can get some of those before we move on. Oh, lack of consistent syllabus policies, again, from a faculty lens. Lack of student AI literacy. Yes. Yes. All right. So the consistency, the credibility, some of them have fallen away from mine that were so small here. Bias. I'm glad somebody captured that there.
So I can hear you.
Yes.
You say, I'm not going to stay in there.
Hello? Oh, somebody's left. All right. Want to introduce you to a solution to a lot of the pain points here. We can go to the next slide. With competency-based education, with this disruption, we all agree that this is a disruption in education. And with disruption, with CBE brings demonstration. So that is our little comment here to frame out our experience today. So if we go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit more about what do we mean by competency-based education principles. Well, it really is integrity by design. So if we're worried about integrity with Gen Ed, this is a solution. We'll talk about the principles and we'll talk about some strategies. So for example, starting with outcomes are our guiding star. They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, and they're relevant in CBE design. We're also focused on applied performance tasks that demonstrate those outcomes or the knowledge, skills, and abilities for students. They're authentic, engaging, challenging, and they provide opportunities for students to receive actionable feedback so that they can improve. Our rubrics, they define success. They're clear and concise. They describe those levels of performance that the student is attempting to attain. They're fair, objective, and they provide that actionable feedback. And the artifacts that are produced out of the performance tasks are evidence of mastery of those outcomes. They're tangible, they're relevant to work and work performance, and they serve as that ultimate evidence of learning. So I want to walk you through a use case In the next slide here, we'll talk about in one of our core courses, general education core courses for introductory statistics. Using the framework that Jamie's going to walk you through, we have an assignment here that adopts these principles using generative AI. So I just wanted to walk you through it here. In the resources that we will provide you, you have a copy of the actual assignment, which includes the instructions for faculty and the instructions for students, as well as the rubric. But this is, I'm just going to walk you through an overview here for sake of time, but you'll have time to look at it more discreetly. So in this example, the generative AI actually is a learning partner. It's not a shortcut. Students are presented with a scenario where a professor wants to know if students in her class study more than 10 hours a week. They are given the sample, mean, and standard deviation, and then prompted to determine if there's enough evidence to conclude that students do study more than 10 hours a week. So in this version, the students aren't told what statistical test to do. They only get the question, the data, and the claim. Then, in this case, the generative AI acts as that tutor. It helps them propose a procedure, a list of steps, and then reminds them of assumptions and their interpretation. Then the student's job is to stay in charge. They decide what to accept, what to push back on, and they capture that judgment in short notes after each generative AI step. When they run the analysis themselves with either a calculator or software, and they verify the result, they're documenting then how they checked it and whether or not anything needed to be corrected. The deliverables create a transparent record of their engagement with the generative AI tool. This includes screenshots of the conversation, notes of each in the student's own words, a brief verification of the summary, and a clear, plain language conclusion about the study hours. And then in addition, we're asking them to create a short reflection video explaining what the generative AI got right, where it drifted, and how the student handled it. The guardrails in the assignment make the expectations very explicit. They're to cite the tool, not to paste generative AI text as their own, show their process, and document their verification. Scoring of the task centers on ethical use, critical judgment, technical soundness, and clear communication. And in short, the generative AI becomes a scaffold for reasoning, where students prove they can leverage the tool and still think like a statistician. So on the next slide, I want to go through a little bit more discreetly, again, what has changed? Like, what would have changed from a regular assignment? Well, we're shifting from answers to agency and evidence. So shifting that single homework assignment answer to a generative AI assisted performance task gives us observable evidence of statistical reasoning. In this task, generative AI is a learning partner, not a shortcut. As students are running the one sample t-test, they're verifying each step in their own words. And this allows us to allows us to see how the student thinks rather than just seeing the answer that they got. The documented process makes generative AI use transparent. The screenshots and the notes of what the model suggested, whether they accepted it or not, and why, gives us an audit trail of their prompts, their outputs, and their judgment. This activity provides concrete evidence and statistical skills. Students must choose the right test. They must check their assumptions and perform the calculations and interpret the results. The reflection then captures that judgment. Students are to explain what the generative AI got right, where it drifted, and how they detected those issues, and then what they changed. They articulate when they'd trust the model in future problems and when they'd slow down to check. And these are the exact professional task skills we're looking for. So the rubric evaluates in those areas of ethical AI use, critical thinking, communication and reflection, and the technical competence, which all align with the AI literacy framework that Jamie's going to walk us through now.
Thank you, Erin. That was fantastic. And so we're going to talk a little bit about AI literacy. And we saw in our poll that that popped up or bubbled up for us. And that's a very timely comment. And by the way, my camera is not working today, so I apologize for that. But it's not going to stop us, right? It's a very timely comment because we are in the AI Learning Collaborative working on a basic AI literacy framework. And the framework will touch all stakeholders within the TBR system. And it's what it is a basic set of competencies that, depending on which stakeholder group you are in, if you're faculty, if you're staff, students are included, what are the basic AI competencies that you need to have mastered to be able to interact with these tools effectively? And so if you're keeping your ear to the ground out in the academic world right now, AI literacy is being talked about every day, very much. And that's also true on the industry side. And where we are in the community college space, we are directly responsive to industry, right? So what is industry saying about AI literacy? What we are hearing from our different business owners and employers out there is that they are expecting graduates to be able to work with AI tools. And in fact, AI literacy is the #1 skill that they're looking for right now. You will hear them talk about they can train up or work with employees on other skill sets, but they really want these employees or the graduates coming in to have AI fluency. Critical thinking counts. And we know that's very important being in the academic space, but industry knows that as well too. So they need for graduates to be able to evaluate, verify, and use AI ethically, not just sit down and prompt the system, not just simply question the system. Know what to do with the outputs, know how to verify those outputs. Use those systems ethically. Don't give up your agency. So they really want that whole person go with this versus just being able to put in prompts and get responses. The industries have told us that they see a skills gap, and they know that there's a skills gap. If you talk to recent graduates over the last few years, they will also tell you this, that there's a skills gap because AI was not on the forefront of everyone's mind, maybe when they went through school a few years ago. And so we do have a skills gap there. And industry is speaking directly to community colleges when they say that we are greatly positioned to help with that skills gap. So that's something that we really want to keep front and center as we move forward in our AI work. So we want to talk a little bit about the literacy frameworks further. And so again, I mentioned that those frameworks are to touch all of the stakeholders within the system. So again, we're building out that basic foundational piece, and then different faculty members, different staff members, our administrators can take that framework and build upon it with their discipline-specific areas that will also have competencies in there, right? And so thinking about that, this is the domains you see in front of you. So think of domains as big buckets. And so we're looking at the basic framework for the student set, for the student stakeholder. And so what we have done in the AI Collaborative is taken two well-known and widely accepted AI frameworks that are currently in use, and that is the EDUCAUSE framework. You can look it up and read more about it if you'd like to. They have it on their website. And the UNESCO framework. And the differences in those two frameworks, the reason why we are meshing those together is UNESCO includes some external ideas and thoughts and competencies in there that higher ed may not be looking to implement within their framework, but they have a lot of stuff that's overlapping and consistent. EDUCAUSE's framework slants toward higher ed. They may not have all of those workforce competencies that we're looking for specifically. And so we found that a mesh of these two gets us to a really great, solid set of basic competencies for each of our stakeholder sets. The big buckets for the students are technical understanding, critical evaluation, practical application, ethical considerations, and workforce alignment. So under each one of those big domain buckets, there will be a set of competencies that students need to master. It may be for a module in a course. It could be for a course. It could be for a program. It could be for a college. It just depends on how you want to scale it out. If you've ever had the opportunity to look at the Career One Stop, the Department of Labor website, they have a competency model clearinghouse over there, and it's a great place to go to look for the language of competency structure, of statements, and understanding what competencies look like on the academic all the way over to workforce competencies, very specific. And so what we have done, if you look at their competency models, you'll see a 5-tiered model. And so the foundational competencies at the bottom are the competencies that everyone should know. Those are communication competencies. They are personal competencies and the way that we act in our daily lives. So those are things everyone needs to know and be able to do. Tiers 2 and 3 over there get at academic competencies and workplace competencies. So what we've done in our framework is to combine those two. So we're drawing on academics and we're drawing on workforce. So we're pulling those together. Tier 4 gets at occupation specific. So if you're in accounting, you'll see specific competencies for an accounting position over there. And then Tier 5 gets up into the management and strategical competencies. Those are when you are managing people, managing businesses, managing workflows, all of those kinds of things. So that's kind of what you see in front of you. So again, we're combining 2 and 3, which are academic and workforce competencies. Again, these are the big buckets for students, so bear that in mind as we go forward. And you will see that when you access these materials and you look at Erin's statistics example, you'll see those competencies identified in that document. I've also included the link down here to Career One Stop. So when you get this slide today, if you've not gone on over there before, you can follow that URL, or you can simply type in Career One Stop Competency Model, and it will come up for you. Okay, so the steps to think about developing an AI competency and AI literacies into your course. We're going to use competency-based principles to build this up in our courses. And so what we do is we start out with determining or developing. We look at the domain first. Look at your domains first. So if we want to say it's technical understanding, then that's good. We're going to latch onto that domain. It could be a ethical consideration, whatever you want to do there. So that's your big bucket. So once you're in a domain, you develop your competency. What is it that students need to know and be able to do? Now, where these look a little different than your typical traditional course learning objectives is that competencies, when I look at them, they begin with an observable, measurable verb. So it could be something like apply, demonstrate, those kinds of things that when you shut your eyes, you can see what the student is doing, what they're performing. Juxtapose that with something we see lots of times in like a learning objective, like students will know, students will recognize. Well, how do I measure that? How do I know students will know? How do I know students will recognize? If I'm watching them perform a demonstration for me. And so it's keeping that first verb very, very observable, measurable. Shut your eyes, see the movie. And so we start to develop out our competency statements. So we've got our domain, our competency statements. And then we want to figure out how are we going to assess those competencies? What are the students going to do? What's that assessment going to look like? What are the levels of performance going to look like? So what do I mean by that? So what if a student is approaching competency or they've reached competency? They are competent, they are proficient in what they're doing. What if they exceed it? So we'll look at this in just a moment. Then what I want to do, once I figure out how I'm going to assess it, then I want to use AI to have it help me develop a rubric based on that activity. And many of you have done that. You've told us about that. You see the power in using AI tools and building out rubrics. So that's great. And then what we ultimately want to do is make sure that it aligns with our course outcomes, with our learning outcomes, right? So are we having students do what we intended them to do for mastery? Are we measuring what we intended to measure? And so that alignment piece keeps us on the right path and moving towards the right thing. And AI tools are really, really helpful in providing alignment for you. So what you're going to see, you can, once you get this presentation, or if you want to just screenshot that QR code there real quick, in this folder, you'll find these different documents we're going to take a quick look at here, along with Erin's statistical document. So there's a blank one over there for you to use as a little resource map to guide you through this process. So let's take a look at these documents. Okay, so on an example on the left is for the domain critical evaluation. So I'm going to say, okay, can students use that critical thinking muscle and work through an activity? And so on this one, my domain is critical evaluation. My competency statements: evaluate AI generated responses by checking for accuracy, bias, and alignment with credible sources. So that first, evaluate. I can see students doing that, right? And so that competency statement is going to drive everything that we do in this activity. And so what I'm going to do, so you'll see steps 3 and 4 sometimes flipped in this process. So sometimes someone will go from the competency statement directly to the assessment, and they'll include the performance indicators within this assessment step. So just know that these 3 and 4 dance together. They go together as partners. So let's talk about this assessment for just a moment. So an assessment idea. Students submit a side-by-side comparison of AI-generated summary and a peer-reviewed article, highlighting 3 errors or biases and explaining how they corrected or supplement the AI's response. So they're just looking at the outputs and given a set of criteria, which we can use the AI to give us that set of criteria. Students are going to go through and critically evaluate that article. Under that performance indicator area, it says identifies factual errors in AI-generated text, compares AI output to at least 2 credible sources, reflects on whether AI response meets academic or professional standards. So those are those active, really little steps that they're going to do, that they're going to prove their competency through those steps. And so once we determine, okay, here are the things students are going to do. So how do I know when I'm seeing competency? Okay. That's your levels of proficiency. So if I'm looking at those and I can see that they're identifying factual errors, they're comparing AI outputs, and they're reflecting and giving me a good reflection, then they've hit that competency, right? So when you're developing your levels of proficiency, you're thinking, what does it look like when a student is demonstrating competency? That's where I typically start. What does competency look like? And then I'll say, okay, What does approaching competency look like? They're not quite there. They're on their way. Maybe they're missing some things in their work. We deal with this all the time. And so you know that they are hitting approaching competency. Now, what if they are going above and beyond and they're giving me feedback I didn't even prompt them for? Then they are exceeding competency at that point. So what you're going to do here when you're working with that assessment is you got to figure out, what are the students going to do? What's the evidence I'm going to look for? What is the evidence I'm going to require? And at what levels are students performing those tasks that I asked them to do? Then ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to connect that, all of the competencies, the competency statements, what students are doing in that assessment, and you're going to align it back to the course outcome. So again, am I measuring what I aim to measure? So on that left one is an example of a critical evaluation. On the right is an example of workforce alignment. So what this looks like. Now, these are done at a very foundational level. And so I would take the AI and I would plug this information in and I would say, walk me through this process and give me ideas on how to scaffold this out. And the AI tools would do that with you. So workforce alignment. So workforce alignments are domain area. That's where students are going to be doing this activity. It's going to map to workforce alignment. So the competency statement, identify, there's my observable verb, AI-related skills and tasks and job postings for their field and connect them to course learning outcomes. This is a great activity, by the way, that you can have your students be doing because students have heard of ChatGPT, they've heard of Gemini, they've heard of Claude, but are they thinking about what AI tools are being used in the particular careers that they're going after? Are they using those tools? Are they using other tools? Are they using a combination? So it's a great little activity for students to do to get them thinking about, okay, what are the people in my career field doing with AI right now? So we've got our competency. They're going to identify AI-related skills and task and job postings. All right, so what students are going to need to do, I'm going to pop down here to the assessment. Collect 3 to 5 recent job postings in their discipline or in their career discipline. Use AI to extract skill keywords and submit a short reflection, video, audio, written, linking one course competency to an AI application, to workforce application. So I've got video, audio there because we see this a lot now in students providing reflection. Because why? Because lots of students are using AI to produce the reflection, right? So do it in a quick video. If they don't feel comfortable on camera, do it in audio. They can record themselves on their phone with the video tool, with the camera turned the other direction or covered. And so they're giving you a reflection in that way. So again, they're comparing job postings. So I'm going to look for prompts AI to scan and summarize recurring skill sets. So look at the quality of their posting. They may have to iterate, right? Or the prompting, sorry. Identify where AI tools are shaping or automating tasks in their particular career field. Reflects on how current course outcomes align and do not align with those workforce needs. So those are the things I'm going to look for. Then I need to figure out at what level am I seeing proficiency? At what level, if I see a student has started the work, but they're not really proficient yet, they're approaching. Or are they beyond? They're giving me the feedback that I didn't prompt them for, or they're showing me skills I didn't prompt them for. And then ultimately, I'm going to align the competency and the assessment to my course outcomes. And so the way I do that really is I take the competency statement and the assessment idea and I copy paste that in. I copy paste in my course outcome or my learning outcomes, and I say, are these aligned? And see what the AI comes back and lets you know. So that's an example of just 2 little tasks that you can use to help students master AI literacy and thinking about it in 2 ways: how to think critically, how to align to workforce. Example outcomes and artifact. ethical use of AI, some 3-word cues. These are for students to look at and know what you're looking for. Identify hidden bias. We know it's there, right? AI systems, most all of them have bias in there. So students are looking for that bias to identify it. So they're doing a bias check. Prompt engineering, refine prompt strategy. And so that's what you're giving the cue to the students to do. So it's going to prompt the audit of those prompts. Explainability, trace model logic. This is really important. How is the AI getting to the outputs that it's producing for me? What is the traceable workflow? If students are working with the AI, now they don't need to technically know how it's working behind the scenes and those kinds of things, but what's the process that they're using to work with that AI? And they're able to then give you that process back so you can see how they arrived at the answers that they're providing for you and not just simply relying on the answers that they're handing back to you. A great way to do this is to build out an AI literacy module that you can then plug and play. And we're actually working on those right now. And so we'll have some really good examples for you going forward, but also you can do this within your department. Work together on building an AI literacy module that can just be plugged in, and you can take it, adapt it, and quickly plug it into, because again, we're looking at those lower level AI literacy competencies that everyone should really know. Only when you get into the really discipline specific areas and you want to talk about application over there is where we would get differences in our content areas. This is a great little quote that ChatGPT turned out for us. AI literacy is the new digital literacy. These skills are essential for every graduate, every discipline, and every educator. So that is so true. We've spent so many years talking about the importance of digital literacy, and AI literacy is part of that greater footprint, but it is really something that's important because it's touching every content area, every job sector, every person in one way or another. Okay, so again, this is just to look at the process, the recipe that you follow to guide you. Determine your domain area. There's the domains that are going to be for the students. Craft your AI literacy competency statement. You can take your course learning objective and plug it into AI and say, word this in a competency statement where the first verb is observable and measurable, and it will reframe those for you to give you competency language. Identify an assessment. Build that assessment. You're going to determine those performance indicators. That's also done in the rubric and aligned to course outcomes. So that's your little recipe to follow. Again, on 3 and 4, they can kind of move around a little bit, but if you follow this right here, it will work out for you. Otherwise, even if you change those around a little bit and do the assessment in the next step, it's fine as well. So just follow your recipe. Okay, so here's an example. Sarah did this, and so I'm going to give her credit for her work back there. And so she drafted out this great prompt that will walk maybe someone through this process who's not used to working in the competency-based world. That's the difference in stepping over here and understanding kind of what do we mean when we say authentic assessment? What do we mean when we use these terms in the CBE world? So the prompt is, yes. Is there a question? Okay. The prompt, I'm an instructor teaching 300 level business management course. I'm getting some feedback somewhere. Does someone have a microphone on?
Actually, we were hearing you being reflected back through a participant, so I muted them, so you should be okay now.
Okay, perfect. I'm an instructor teaching a 300 level business management course. I want to include the AI competency statement, demonstrate the skills of critical evaluation in a business context. That's pretty general, but that's a great place to start. Students will use one of the following context areas: employee retention, supply chain optimization, marketing strategy, risk management, customer service automation. Draft an assessment, allowing students to demonstrate their skill at the levels of exemplary, proficient, developing, beginning. Draft an assessment using these applied performance levels. That's a repeat. That's on my part. Sorry. Include specific requirements for students. Okay, so what it's got over on the front. So what we've told it, we want it to demonstrate critical evaluation skills. We're going to let them choose an area of business that's in my business management course that we're talking about. We want AI to suggest an assessment for that process. We want AI to draft the rubric, and I will get that corrected for you before the end of the day. And so what they're going to do, here's the assessment overview. The competency at the top. Demonstrate the skills of critical evaluation in a business context. The assessment it gave me back. AI-enhanced business evaluation project. Students will critically evaluate AI-generated business insights within a selected context area. There's the ones I fed to it. The goal is to demonstrate the ability to apply critical evaluation skills to determine the accuracy, reliability, and strategic value of AI-supported business recommendations. So under here, I ask for student directions. It's going to give those to me. Select a context area. So students are going to choose. They're going to use a generative AI tool of their choice. This can be done in all free versions to produce an AI-generated analysis or set of recommendations for your chosen topic. Clearly state your prompt in your submission. So we're documenting process. Evaluate the output. Assess the accuracy, depth, and bias of the AI's response using credible business sources. Discuss what the AI got right, what it missed, and what assumptions it made. Apply business reasoning. Provide your human-authored evaluation, integrating business principles, data interpretation, and contextual factors. Submit a 3 to 5 page written report or a recorded presentation. So they could build the slides and then simply narrate those for you. So they're not simply just giving you a set of slides, or they're just giving you a written report. It could be that they give you a written report and provide you with the audio summary of it. So there's some different ways to do that, where you're having them actually give you something that you know that they're not just copying and pasting out of AI. Include your original prompts, the AI-generated responses, and your evaluation. Okay. All right, so this is the assessment design going forward again. These are just breaking it down, what the students are going to do, and it gives them a little bit more PDF or Word and those kinds of things. So this is an example of the rubric. So I had given it the proficiency levels. You will see some folks use 3 proficiency levels. You'll see some folks use 5. You'll see some folks use 2. The student does it, they demonstrate proficiency, or they do not. It's different across the board. So it depends on what you're comfortable with. So you'll see here there's 4 different levels. So over on the left are the criteria that it's proposing that I use in this assessment. AI transparency and process. Includes prompts, AI-generated outputs, and description of interaction with the tool. Evaluation of depth and accuracy. Critically evaluate the outputs. Integration of business knowledge and context. Evidence and support. Communication and professional presentation. And then it's going to break it down at each one of those levels and what I'm seeing at each one of those levels. So up there, if I'm looking at AI transparency and process and a student omits AI prompts or outputs, then I know they've not gotten there yet. They're started, but they've not gotten to where we need them to be. And so the next level, they include partial process, but they're not there yet. So go back, do it again. Proficiency includes AI prompts and responses. So again, I know what I'm seeing. I see what I'm getting. That's what I asked for. And then exemplary would be above and beyond. So this is an example. Again, we're looking at the competency, the assessment. Here's the rubric and the proficiency levels in front of me. Okay. Now, let's think about the alignment piece, which was the final piece, aligning it to the course outcomes. And so what the example here is showing us is that we want to have the AI. We're going to take that competency statement, again, as we mentioned before. We're going to take the assessment idea and we're going to drop that into AI. And you're going to say, are these aligned with my course outcomes? Copy and paste your course outcomes in there. Here's a set of questions that you can ask yourself. Which of the course outcomes does this assessment measure or reinforce? Now, if you put your course outcomes in that AI tool, you can have it do the mapping for you. You can say, reference the course outcome here that this assessment is working toward. Does the assessment require students to apply, analyze, and evaluate as intended in the outcome? Are the rubric criteria observable, measurable, and aligned with the course's cognitive levels? Does the task use discipline-specific language, frameworks, or data consistent with the course? If not, how might I adjust assessment or strengthen the alignment? You could also ask the AI how you might strengthen that alignment or adjust the assessment and have it give you feedback. Use it as your collaborator in this process and let it walk you through the process. Especially if you're new to competency-based education, you can have it just tell it, I'm new to competency-based. I need you to coach me through this process, guide me through this process. Be sure if you are plugging in this information for the first time and you haven't dealt with the terminology competency-based education very much, that you spell that out. I found out when I was very first using these tools, if I put in CBE, it wanted to talk about head injury versus competency-based education. I'm trained now and I can use CBE, but you may need to spell it out. Okay, so industry alignment, instant skills map. So we mentioned early on that we are partners with industry. So we need to constantly look at and keep up with what is industry thinking about AI skills. What are they asking for students to need to know? This can be AI skills. This could be any skill that you're aligning your content with. So you can use the AI tools to do this piece. It's really great. We do this with our Gen Ed courses when we are doing those in competency-based format, because many times our Gen Ed faculty haven't had those face-to-face conversations with industry to say, hey, this is what I'm teaching in my course. Is this relevant in what you are looking for as an industry employer from graduates? So this is a great little activity to do that, to make sure that you're on the right path. So you can pick a skill, pick a city and a state, and prompt it. List the top 5 job postings that require the skill, and you're going to put it in the quotes, in the city and state. So you're even giving it a region. You're getting very specific, and summarize common keywords employers use. Include the URL for each job posting. Now this prompt right here is pretty general. It's a great place to start. But you're going to get general listings, general outputs. And by that, I mean, it's the jobs that it's going to bring back are from various sectors. So if I wanted to look at just the healthcare sector, then I'm going to add that into my prompt. I'm going to give it context. That's what we're talking about. So the more context you feed these systems, the better, right? So again, that's a great prompt right there. So we're going to have it go out and bring us back information on the top 5 job postings in a region with this skill. So let's take a look. So this skill, so we're looking at, let me back up just a little bit here. So we're looking at contract management. And it's pretty general, but again, contract management job postings, Phoenix, Arizona. This is what it's going to come back and give us. And so it gives us those actual job postings, and students can then start to drill down. And this gets them thinking about first of all, how do I decipher a job posting, right? How do I understand the information that's in it? What are the skills that employers are looking for? That's valuable, super valuable for students and also for us as faculty. And then they can see an actual job posting and see what's asked for in those particular roles. So again, there's a ChatGPT URL here. You can find the outputs. Sarah goes into much more detail with it. And so take a look at that when you get the presentation. But again, use these AI tools to allow you to align what you're doing in your course as to what industry is asking for. That could be on the AI front. That could be on any skill set front. But also, look at the literacy skills that students are mastering as they are feeding this information through these AI systems. They got to critically evaluate, right, to see what it's giving them. They're checking to see if it's valid, what it's saying, are the outputs accurate? They could check multiple different platforms to see, quiz and see, these came from Indeed. Maybe I want to quiz a different platform and see what that one finds. So this just can be scaffolded many different directions. Commons and keywords and phrases used by employers. This is really great. If you're aligning a course, or I'm sorry, if you're aligning your application, why am I not thinking of the word? My resume. Oh my goodness, that left me for a moment there. So if I'm looking at what are the terms that employers are saying they're looking, what are the skills that they're looking for? Where do I have that represented on my resume, right? Is it worded correctly? Because many of these companies are using applicant tracking systems, and they are AI driven systems. They're not human systems anymore. So maybe it's not a human that's evaluating that resume. So this allows students to see what are those common keywords and phrases. That also strengthens their ability to use AI tools to find jobs, right? To use AI tools to align their skill sets, to find out where they may have gaps in their skill sets. So it's really valuable on first using the tools and then using those to as application in your life. Bringing it back to competency. So again, we mentioned that when we're doing our Gen Ed CE development, many of our faculty just have not had the opportunity to bounce those ideas off of industry directly. They may have, they may not have. But if they haven't, these tools give you the power to fill that gap. And so how do I bring what I'm finding back to my course, whether it's Gen Ed course or not? And that is connect those skills that you're finding out there when you're mining back to the content that you're learning in your course. Because what we find, well, particularly when we get into those Gen Ed courses, students, you've got students doing the critical thinking. You've got them doing the communication. You've got them doing the clearly speaking presentation. You've got them doing the research. But how do we get those down into words and phrases that our students understand? Okay, this is what I'm learning, and this is why I'm learning it, and this is how it maps to industry. So action plan is to commit to one thing to do in the next week of your learning. Take the templates that are in the folder that are supplied for you and noodle around with it. You can copy and paste the information that's in that blank template into the AI tool and say, this is the process that I'm doing. Coach me through this process, walk me through this process, and have it help you to get an AI literacy task set up and built for your course. Write one AI prompt to generate example tasks or workplace scenarios tied to an existing competency. Again, the AI tools can help you with the scenario generation, very strong in that way as well. I'm going to hand it back to Pari, and she's going to take it from here. So please do take it, play with it, noodle around with it. Any questions, let us know.
Thanks, Jamie. I was gonna say the choose one thing slide. I love that slide. And I'm gonna add to that is like just choose one assessment to play around with. Start with just one thing. So don't be overwhelmed. We like to share sneak peeks of what's coming up. As Jamie mentioned, we're working on a skeleton draft for the AI literacy competency framework. And then TBR AI fellows will be chosen, and they will build the framework details, definitions, and recommendations, best practices for the system. Like she said, also, it could be taken and built into competencies for your specific discipline. So that's coming soon. There's going to be AI literacy module eventually that will plug into all the CBE Gen Ed courses. So that's coming up. We're working on that. And then in spring 26, there's going to be a TBR AI conference. We are still working out the details. And so those details will be shared soon with you. Next slide, please. The other thing that's live now is check out the AI Learning Collaborative AI Exchange, basically, where people, this just launched in August, I think, and then people are sharing just use cases of how they are using AI to kind of in their work, in their classes, what worked, what didn't work. It's just started. That's about 8 to 10 use cases right now, but feel free to look around. It's a searchable database of use cases, and just feel free to add your own. Even if something doesn't work, we like to know, so other people can have a heads up. You can upload your use case and just go to that URL right there. The other resource that we really want to emphasize on, especially since we see some new people here, is the Bridging Mind and Machines website. This is our website where we have tons of information, including all of our Tech Talk recordings and summaries. There's also tool evaluations. There's also recommended articles and resources, policy-related, syllabus-related, syllabus statement-related stuff. So please check this out. This is a resource for you, built by us, and just for everybody across the system, and share with anybody who's looking for help in this area. Even the Department of Labor Tennessee, or sorry, Department of Education Tennessee was very impressed with this resource. So check it out. The last part is to always invite connections with us. If you have any questions, if you want us to do customized training for your institution, for your group, whatever, just email us at ailearning@tbr.edu. Be sure to tune into our next Tech Talk. It is always on the second Tuesday of every month. And we don't do it in January and August because people are launching semesters. But otherwise, we are always here. And just reach out to us if you have any specific questions. Thank you.